smartphone. What is really the difference between a Samsung and an iPhone? Almost nothing. But the marketing convinces us that iPhones might be cooler.
I saw one time the iPhone company, they made a campaign, the same iPhone until the 5, 3S, 4S, until 5, it's the same designer, the same options, everything the same, only the cover.
Yeah.
And the processor, maybe it's a bit advanced.
Yeah.
No, it's the same, but they have a special secret code.
Okay.
The designer put it, and we can choose it on our iPhone. So they keep it for the next iPhone. They
Very
have
nice.
the secret code and they open the device.
Well, it's almost like a car. You can buy a Chevy or a Cadillac. They look a little different, but underneath it's the same car. I actually showed my daytime students, I'd show you if I had internet access, one of the high-end watchmakers, Auger I think it's called, they sell watches for $10,000. The mechanism inside the watch that spins the dials is made by a company in China. It's one of the biggest watchmaking companies in the world, and they also make watch insides for Seiko, which is the brand I'm wearing. The watch they put it in the Seiko is $600, the Auger is $10,000. The only difference, the outside has a better band and it looks nicer for $10,000. So that's one of those things that I show my students, you know, if you're buying these watches, your watch is no better than mine and it costs you $9,500 more.
Also, you're buying the name.
The name is, that's exactly right.
You're buying the name at the end.
And the name is just like a diamond. It only has value because we think it does.
We don't buy for the value of the watch,
Mhm.
how is it made, of the carats of gold, or it's just because of the name.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
60% of it because of the name.
Yeah. And that's the idea of the marketing orientation. If you tried to sell somebody a $10,000 watch just with the production orientation, nobody would buy it. The reason people buy these $10,000 watches is because of the image, right? When they put in movie stars, it's always George Clooney. It's never, you know, do you know who Steve Buscemi is? When they have a movie star advertising a watch, it's always somebody very, very prestigious and very, you know, charming and masculine. That's always the person wearing the $10,000 watch. It's never, you know, some dirty guy who plays criminals or something like that. It's always got to be the handsome movie star, because otherwise no one's going to pay $10,000 for it. Okay? So I think we have an idea with the marketing orientation, and we agree. It's the name. So if you do a good job marketing your business, people will come to you for the name, which means also the reputation and the ideas that go along with your company. For me, bricks and mortar, that's real estate. People come to me because I have a reputation for being honest and for giving them a little bit of extra freedom that other people might not give them. Okay, and then finally, relationship marketing orientation. This, probably your favorite business that you do business with is this orientation. Does anybody have an idea?
Fashion, banks, insurance.
Yeah, banks is a big one. My bank's in Luxembourg. They used to be called Internex. Now they're TD. They're owned by Canada, but they're in Luxembourg. The service is outstanding. Outstanding. When I have a problem, I don't have to call them. They call me. They call me and say, oh, just so you know, in the next couple of hours, we're going to be redoing the website so you won't be able to access it. Who does that? Nobody does that. My bank does that. Of course, I'm paying for that service, but it's really interesting. Anybody else have another company?
Telecom.
Sorry?
Telecom.
Telecoms? Yeah. Yeah. Why did QTEL change to Ooredoo? Ooredoo, am I saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why? Because they want to establish new relationships, and so changing your name is the best way to do it. Most of us can remember when QTEL, the service wasn't that great. Change your name, better service. Now I don't have a relationship with QTEL, I have a relationship with the new one. Sort of like with me, I have this tie and, you know, reasonably nice clothes on, but if you saw me this morning in my pajamas, you wouldn't take me very seriously if I was teaching you like that. So that's part of the idea.
We have the same. It didn't.
Some of you do. Yeah.
I was training manager in QTEL. I know the story. In 2020, they want to become best 20 company in the world. So they changed their name to Ooredoo. Now they have 17 branches in the world, like in Oman, Kuwait, Palestine, Iraq, Philippines, Tunisia, Algeria. Now they will come back Vodafone. Vodafone in the world, all they have branch, but Vodafone. Now they will change their name in all countries. Ooredoo.
Yeah.
They have their vision to become this 20 company. Now they bought Previous company now 41. No, not them. Qatar Holding. They bought 41% from the best 5 Indian company. I forget their name.
Okay. And see, that's a good idea too. A lot of times when you have a company, if its reputation isn't so good, changing the name helps, but also expanding and taking over companies that do a good job because you can learn from them. One of the best examples that I can think of for the relationship marketing orientation, when I first got here 7 years ago, Qatar Airways was a middle-of-the-road airline at best. I liked it. The planes were brand new and those were nice, but the service wasn't always good. I got bumped every once in a while. Now here we are 7 years later. Qatar Airways is one of my favorite airlines, and I've flown a lot of airlines. Air Canada, on the other hand, is still one of the worst in the world. But this is another example. Why do I like Qatar Airways? Not just because they always get me my coffee properly, because they don't. Sometimes they make little mistakes. But in general, the relationship I have with Qatar Airways is excellent. I get lots of free trips from them. I get lots of emails, but only emails I want, not the emails I get every day from some store at the mall. They do everything very, very well. I think Qatar Airways is the sort of place where, for many of us, if we're in similar service industries, you can look at them as a model of not just how to do things well, but how to improve from being average to doing very, very well. Is it okay if I turn this off while we're on, for example? Could I do it? Sure. Am I very good at it? No, I can't say that I am. And so this can also be part of the planning process, but the key is you have to be honest with yourself, and that's not always so easy. How many of you are comfortable pointing out your own flaws, so things you're not good at? It's hard. And sometimes our ego or our desire to save face might not even let us recognize that. So, I'm old, but I still try to convince myself this isn't gray, it's blonde. But that's just not true. But, and my kids will tell me, but it's very hard for me to look at the mirror and say that, right? And this can be the same thing. Do you know what is it called when we have so much confidence we fool ourselves? Do you know what that word is in English? It starts with the letter H. It's called hubris. It means almost like arrogance, but even worse. It's the idea that we think we're very good, but we're really not. Now, it's okay to be confident, of course, right? But when we're confident that we have a strong ability that we don't have, that is when we tend to make mistakes. So again, when I go back to the big mistake I mentioned at the beginning of the course, I thought I knew everything I needed to know. That was hubris, because I was clearly wrong. I was wrong in so many other ways, just it didn't cost me quite as much. So, the first 2 stages of marketing management, planning and organizing. And then, of course, proper implementation. So actually executing the marketing plan. So when we're thinking about executing the marketing plan, we're talking about coordinating things, making sure they all mesh together. So for example, are we charging a price that is consistent with what our showroom looks like? Are we charging a very high price, but then our showroom is dirty and small and in an unpleasant area? That's something that have any of you ever eaten at a place called Rick's Country Kitchen? It's a very good. The food there is amazing, but it's very pricey. But when you go to Rick's Country Kitchen, it does not look like a place that should cost a lot of money. It's the opposite, in fact. A lot of times, I have to run from my car just because of the smell, especially when it's hot. And inside's not particularly clean, but when you order the food, oh my God. Huevos rancheros. I don't know if you know what that is, but if you do, the best in the city. But the issue is, I don't go there very often, and the reason is the place. I'll pay the money. I know the food is worth it, but when I get there, I look around and it's just so dirty and just not very pleasant to be in that environment. A lot of times I go to the mall instead. Yes.
This particularly, what you are focusing now, or recently, there is that may be true for certain industry. But mostly, if you talk about the traditional businesses, for instance, manufacturing, any manufacturing maybe, people doesn't care about it. They care about the product itself, right? And when we create value, it's not just the environment we create value. For instance, if the customer comes to my office, they don't care how fancy it is. there are up to certain things. For instance, the price, the product quality, the time of delivery,
No?
the requirement of the projects. If I do not meet one of them, they probably will not choose me, right?
That's right.
So even whatever the environment is, they will not choose us. Fashion may go, or maybe the watches or something like that, but not other, for
But-
instance, pharmaceuticals.
You're right, but exactly.
The product. If I call an architecture, for example, to make a villa, and I enter his office, all papers all over. It's very disorganized. I don't care. I just want a good final paper, even if he is unorganized. But if I enter, for example, an espresso shop, it's a museum.
Yeah.
And when you enter, you feel like even if you go to buy one coffee, you feel like you're very important.
But again, you are talking about a different segment. For instance, I do not deal with the end customers. We would never see an end customer. We would meet with the processors, fabricators, and above the wholesalers, maybe, who will get the job, for instance, the governmental job, the whole museum, the Islamic museum, and they would come to us and we would do their job. You get my point? So, for me, it doesn't matter.
You're right.
What matters is the product, what services I'm giving to them, and how I'm going to meet their requirements.
And that's an important part of the planning. So this is the idea when we think about the product, price, place, and promotion. Part of the planning is, okay, for this group of customers, they don't care what my office looks like or what my facility looks like, so I won't worry about that. What they do care about is price. So I have to make sure I give them the best price. Maybe they also, I'm assuming, care about the quality of the product as well, within reason, so I want to make sure I focus on that. And so that's the key. It's not to say that every customer needs all of those things at the same time, because they don't.
Yeah, for instance, pharmaceuticals. The molecule is same. I was a marketer in the pharmaceutical. The product is same, but the brand name is different. If you buy from, let's say, Pfizer, it is higher price,
Yeah.
but they're still able to sell it.
That's right.
And the same molecule by some Me Too company. But they have a different,
This is a perfect example that I use very similar to what you're saying. Is with my students, I say a bottle of water. Why is Evian water more expensive than this? Is the hydrogen atoms better? No, it's the exact same thing. The oxygen atoms, exactly the same. It's all in our heads. There's actually, I don't know if you ever watch Fashion Television, the channel. I'm assuming you probably do. They sell bottled water, fashion water for models and billionaires or something ridiculous like that. And my guess is it's probably very expensive. It's just water. In fact, there were companies in North America, all they were doing was filling the bottles from the regular tap. But they did the marketing and made people think it was prestigious, and they made a lot of money.
Spring water.
That's right, because the name of the city was Spring, so it's spring water. Or my name is Spring, come buy spring water. So you're right, and this again is the key. If you understand your customers, you give them what they want, but like I said earlier, you don't have to give them what they don't want. So for me, if I go back to Canada, I want to buy a Porsche. I don't have to go to the Porsche dealer. I'm happy to buy a Porsche from somebody in their driveway.
Then how I create value to the customer?
Well,
For instance, I have the competitor with the same pricing, same more or less quality products
okay.
and such. And what I believe, that price is not a one factor that you can sell it with them. So how would I do it?
Okay, coming from the real estate background, the first thing I would suggest, not knowing your company or your industry, is my suggestion is that a lot of suppliers in Qatar have time issues.
Yeah, timeline.
Yeah, timeline. So when I was in Canada, if I told my glazier, I need you here at 9 a.m. and I need you done by 5 p.m., there was no excuse, there was no discussion. It was done, or you get off my site and don't come back and don't expect a check.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's not the case in Qatar. So if you become the glass company that says they'll be there at 5 and they're there at 5 instead of 5:30, what's wrong? What's the problem? That creates value, particularly for anybody from Western countries or places like Japan, because you have no idea how frustrating it is for somebody like me who grew up in an area where time is, 5 o'clock is 5 o'clock. Then you come to Qatar and 5 o'clock is anywhere from 4 to 8. Right? That's fine for social events. It's not so good if I'm trying to build a house in 2 months. I can build a house in Canada in a month and a half. You can't do that in Qatar, and it's because suppliers come when they want. So how can you create value? Be on time. How much does it cost to be on time? Nothing.
Yeah.
Not a cent. You were here first. Did you pay more than anybody else? No. That's how you add value in an industry where time, nobody cares about it. And that, again, that's one of those things where people will pay extra to know that you're on time. And if you don't charge them extra, so what? You're just building your brand value.
Yeah.
So that's one. Another one could be, obviously, the types of glass, the types of installation. So one of the things that was big for a while in Canada in residential glass was the glass with the electric current. So I flick a button and it goes from clear to opaque. That was really big. So if you're the only one in Qatar who has the license to sell that, so licensing, exclusivity, so similar to what was said back here by Arwa. See, that's why I did that. So there are ways to create value. Always start with ways that are easy, that don't cost money, and that's almost always time.
Yeah.
And then the next one is behavior and attitude, so just how you talk to people. So for example, when I was in construction, I supervised a number of different people. If I had a customer who was from India, I would send my worker from India, just because they could speak their language. If I had a customer who was a young female, I'm not going to send a really gruff-looking 30-year-old man to their house at 8 o'clock in the morning because they're going to feel uncomfortable. So I send the female, or I send the young man, or I go with the person so that there's 2 of us. Little things like that, you can't underestimate that. Even something as simple as, here we have security. Now, it's not an issue here, but in a university or a college in Canada, safety is always an issue for females. So I could suggest, if you're walking to your car by yourself, I might grab security and say, would you mind walking her to her car, please? And they would say, yes, no problem. They're getting paid anyway, and so that's just a little extra value, a little extra safety. Now, again, you don't really need to do that in Qatar, but the little things like that, always start with what's free to you that is value to them. And I promise you time is going to be one of those things.
Yeah.
Okay?
Timely delivery.
Just being on time. I think it was P.T. Barnum, said 80% of success is just showing up on time.
Yeah.
And it's true. And this is, I tell my students this 100 times. If I was going to build something in Qatar, I would hire 10 people for every job, and I'd only hire the first person who shows up, because I know the other 9. If they don't show up on time the first day, they're not going to show up on time the next day. That doesn't happen. So that's a big issue, of course. Okay, so the other things we want to think about is the marketing control process. And again, this is one of the challenging things, where we look at what we've been doing and recognize what can we do better. And again, we don't always like doing that, but it is vitally important. We look back at the job and say, did we show up on time every day? Did every stitch in that garment, was it good enough for us to wear? Every meal I sent out of the kitchen, was it something I would have eaten? It's very simple to do those things, but not everybody does them, so then we go back. Perfect example, actually right here. I can't get the internet here. Why not? This college has internet all over the place. Why does this one computer not have it? My hope is, after this class, I'll send an email, and my hope is we won't have that problem tomorrow. That's part of the situation as well. It's okay to identify our weaknesses, because if we don't identify them, we can't fix them. And if you show me somebody who's proud but delusional, like they make mistakes but they never admit it, they're probably not someone who's valued too much. Okay, and so as an entrepreneur, oftentimes you're trying to take customers from existing companies, and you're not going to do it with promises, because we've all heard promises before. We're better, we're faster, we're cheaper. No, you're not, and I know that. Okay, so these are the steps, but within each step, it's very important to have like an internal dialogue and be honest with ourselves. What do we need to do? Are we doing that? Is it the right thing to do? How can we do it better, cheaper, faster, and so forth? Okay, next, this is the next section, I guess, social responsibility. Now, many times as an entrepreneur, people don't necessarily think of social responsibility at the top of their list when they're thinking about their marketing strategy, but it is very important in a variety of ways. So, for example, this college, well, not even this college, but many industries in Qatar, one of the key things we deal with is Qatarization, nationalization. That is a social responsibility that a lot of companies feel very strongly of, because if you know the history, like if you think of Britain 1,000 years ago, they would go to a country, they would take that country's resources, and they would leave and take it back to Britain and leave nothing. That's not a very nice way to do things. So what happened? Everybody started hating Britain. So what people started to realize is, wait a second, we can go to countries, we can teach them how to take out their resources, and then we can establish a relationship. So instead of just taking raw materials now, we can set up entire industries and have long-term relationships where we both benefit. And Qatar is a perfect example. Companies come, helped Qatar develop its natural resources. Companies from those countries buy the gas and oil. At the same time, they sell cars and jewelry and food. And so this is a relationship that will go on for decades with no stress or animosity. So for that one example, that's how social responsibility can be very helpful. And you know, just from your own personal view, I don't know about you, I'm a teacher. I don't want to go to some country and take a bunch of money and not leave anything. That's just not the kind of person I want to be. Okay, so social responsibility refers to an organization's obligation to maximize its positive impact and minimize its negative impact on society. So we can, you know, if we watch the news, if we listen, Bangladesh, there was a factory where they ignored safety standards and it collapsed and people died. People shouldn't die making shirts, right? And so what happened is a company like Walmart that buys the shirts says, we can't do business with you because we don't want our business to result in people dying for shirts. It's not who we are. It's not what we want to do. So they pull out. That's an example of social responsibility. What do you feel for your companies? Is there something or anything in particular that you feel is part of your social responsibility? Can you think of something?
Maybe provide the exclusivity to people.
Okay, and how is that socially responsible?
I don't know how exactly, but we can like in fashion. I can't find anything special, but we can give them what they need and have the sales rise up.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it will we can help the American Association or the Qatari Association do special maybe trunk shows for these association, and the money we collect, we give 10%, 20% to help them.
Okay, good.
It would be a good idea.
Okay, how about you?
No idea.
No idea? Okay, over here. That's you. Well, yeah, in general, but try to be more specific. What specifically can you do in Qatar?
I think education, because it's generally, even though the term is widely known, it's very largely misunderstood. Like when people think of green or sustainability, they just assume right away that it's solar panels, but it's actually, it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be such a big investment. It can be as simple as just energy saving devices, which shouldn't cost a lot. So it's more of education.
Very good. Yeah, and see, again, that's one of those things where if I'm selling a product, giving them education is socially responsible. It's also inexpensive for me to do it, and at the same time it improves their lives, and it maybe makes them even want our product a little bit more. How about you?
Basically, waste management for our production.
Yeah, very good.
So it is hazardous. And to introduce products that may be, environment friendly,
Mm-hmm.
low glasses that would be, in Europe. That's what we are doing currently.
Very good. Okay, Arwa?
My field, like, is work with a Qatari designer and have them come and present at my boutique and doing publicity for them.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I met a guy, he owns nemshi.com, which is in Dubai, and part of his goal was that he wants to promote local designers. Because to him, you know, Ralph Lauren's got plenty of money, you know, Chanel has plenty of money. He says, if you're going to spend money at my website, I also want you to support and grow your neighbors. And that's a really nice thing. Not, you know, you don't have to do that, but that's something people just like to do, you know, and even for me, you know, as a teacher, I am educating people, and so I'm actually doing, as my career, I'm getting paid to be socially responsible. It's really nice, but still, there's other things. You know, I'm a visitor in Qatar, so even something like waste management. You know, if I'm driving down the street, I don't throw my garbage out the door because it's like going to your house and spitting on the carpet. I don't want to do that. That's rude, right? And so little things like that, oftentimes, which really don't cost anything. Not only is it socially responsible, but it starts to make you look a little bit better as well. When you start saying, hey, here's a company that embraces Qatarization over and above what the government mandates because they feel it's their responsibility. And, you know, coming from a British colonial country, I've seen the native peoples in Canada, and they still, 200 years later, are not even equal to the rest of us, you know, and it sucks. I don't like that. And I certainly would not go to another country and encourage that. It's just not, it's no good. Another thing in terms of like solar energy and you know, developing glass that saves energy, we've all heard that in Saudi Arabia, part of their issue now is they use up so much of their own oil that they can't sell it. So if we can encourage the people, if we're in Saudi Arabia, we can encourage the people of Saudi Arabia to be more energy efficient, then that's just more oil that they can sell and bring more money into their country for other uses. And you know, the reality is, will you even notice if you have an energy efficient fridge or not? I mean, your food is still cold, who cares? And that's the sort of situation. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. In Canada, we had this giveaway in one of the provinces where the government was actually giving people a brand new energy efficient refrigerator. What they figured out was, say this refrigerator was $700. If I give you this $700 refrigerator, you save $700 worth of energy in 2 years. So they said, we're just going to give it to people and we'll save that much money in energy. But it didn't work. Do you know why? Anybody want to guess? It has something to do with a Canadian culture. No? Okay, everybody took the new fridge and put it in their house, but instead of throwing away the old fridge, they put it downstairs or in the basement and just put beer in it. So now, instead of having one good fridge, now they have two fridges, one good one and one bad one. So rather than saving energy, they have even more energy being used. So that's, again, that's one of those situations. I showed you the 4 steps for planning. Will Canadians actually throw away their old refrigerators? They should have known that most of us wouldn't. I mean, I had 2 refrigerators in my house. Okay? All right. Now, think about the social responsibilities you talked about. How will your product specifically support those responsibilities? Some of you already sort of explained that. Anybody want to add to that? Anything else we can add there?
In fashion, maybe we can also either local designers or international designers.
Mhm.
We can support their products against the animals or the use of the leather, the cows, the crocodiles, anything. So we can support only these products and sell them, but we don't sell the products with the animals' ingredients.
Yeah, that's very good. That animal skins are, again, it's one of those things where who decides that an alligator skin is valuable? I don't understand. It's not, they're not rare. There's alligators everywhere. There's lots of alligators. There's probably as many as there are cows. I don't understand the situation with that. Why is alligator skin valuable? But you know, lions, well, okay, I guess lion skin probably is valuable. What's not valuable? Frog, dog? Okay, yeah, dog. Yeah, who would wear a dog coat? Probably nobody. But in Canada, people wear rabbit fur.
Yeah.
I mean, rabbit, that's how many rabbits do you need to make a coat? Like 100. That's not very sustainable, right? So that's the sort of idea. The other thing with fashion? Okay, thank you very much.
Should go to office and come back.
Okay. You're going to come back tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. When we think about fashion, the one thing my wife and I talk about that we like about being in Qatar is because women dress much more modestly here, whereas when we go back to Canada, when we see the way women dress there, it's very different. So one of the options could be, education, or saying that I'm going to sell clothing, but I'm going to try to maintain the cultural aspects of how people dress. Because sometimes I go to the mall and I see the way clothing is advertised, and I'm like, who in Qatar dresses like that? With like basically a bikini top and tiny shorts. I hope no one's going to the store like that, because they're going to get arrested, I think. Okay, so that's sort of the idea. Again, this is something where I don't want to tell you that it is your responsibility to be socially responsible, because I do think that is something that is personal. But I can tell you, and I honestly mean this, that this is one of the ways that you can add value, particularly when you're in a country where you're not a citizen. Number one, obviously, it's important to behave and be respectful, but at the same time, when you're doing business in a way, you're taking money from the citizens of that country and giving something back. I do believe, honestly, that people appreciate that. Not just the citizens, but other expats. Nothing embarrasses me more than when I see a Canadian acting foolishly and doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing. Because I don't want people to go, oh, those Canadians, they don't know how to do this, that, or the other thing.
Many companies only demonstrate environmental responsibility when they're backed into a corner. Not Patagonia. But then this is a company that's been marching.
Can you hear that?
Since the day it arrived on the outdoor apparel scene over 20 years ago. Based in Ventura, California, Patagonia was founded by Yvon Chouinard to provide an outlet for his handmade mountain climbing equipment. The few outdoor apparel items Chouinard added to his equipment catalog were so well received that he started designing and selling rugged, innovative clothing for whitewater kayaking, backcountry skiing, climbing, and sailing.
I think that the key or the hallmark of Patagonia's success from a product development standpoint is the fact that we have a relentless pursuit of quality in the development of our products. And the reason for that passion and that pursuit is that the people who design and develop our products are serious users of the product themselves, and they rely on it in extreme conditions. So therefore, we have to build the best possible product.
Patagonia's high-quality products soon made their way from mail-order distribution to thousands of specialty shops around the world. The decade of the 80s ushered in an era of style, image, and brand consciousness. An entire generation of consumers were clamoring for outdoor adventure apparel. Through little strategic fault of its own, Patagonia found itself riding a high wave. But it wasn't just the style and quality of clothing that attracted customers. Chouinard himself had something to do with it. Articles and interviews with the avant-garde entrepreneur focused on the time he spent field testing his apparel and developing ideas for new products.
I think in order to understand what we're doing today, you have to go back to the genesis of the company, where you had Yvon Chouinard, who's our founder, who was a serious user of the product, and he was passionate about his pursuit of the sport. And ever since the beginning of Patagonia, we've had active product users in the company who are field testing the product in extreme conditions and who are passionate about their use of the product and who rely on the product. And that's what permeates what we do today, that kind of passion and kind of pursuit of quality.
The work environment at Patagonia mirrored Chouinard's relaxed philosophy. With surfboards sitting beside office desks, lunchtime volleyball matches in the warm California sand, and cafeteria fare that included organic vegetables. The Progressive Company was also one of the first to establish an on-premises child care center, making employees' children an important part of its corporate culture. For almost a decade, it seemed that Patagonia had the Midas touch and that sales were sure to continue soaring. But riding the high wave means taking an occasional spill. And the 80s were also a time when the rest of the world began catching up to Patagonia's trailblazing brand of environmentalism. As early as 1972, Yvon Chouinard was established as a pioneer in clean climbing when he invented chocks that slipped into the cracks of rocks, leaving no holes or scars. And in the mid-80s, the company introduced a generous policy of environmental timing.
Patagonia donates 1% of sales or 10% of pre-tax profits, whichever amount is greater, every year to grassroots environmental groups throughout the country and in other countries in which we do business. And we look for groups that are very involved in the communities where they're located, who are really taking a frontline direct action approach to various environmental issues.
But Patagonia's rapid growth was brought to a halt by a harsh recession, and the company that had blazed a solitary trail for so long found its warehouse bulging with unsold goods. One of the traditional fixes for such a crisis is to create new markets. Patagonia considered expanding its product distribution. Ron Chenard was already appalled at what rapid growth had done to his company. Pushing for more of the same was not his idea of salvation. By choosing to tighten its belt and return to its grassroots niche, high-quality products for loyal customers, Patagonia became a case study in the principles of marketing.
One of the most intriguing aspects of Patagonia is the fact that the company is not driven solely or even primarily by this need to grow, which is typically what drives most companies. We're much more interested in supporting a philosophy that allows for us to grow naturally as there's a natural demand. We're not aggressively pursuing growth for growth's sake. And the other important part of this is that we have a number of other values, particularly our interest in reducing the impact that we're having as a company on the environment. So in every decision-making process, including the development of our product, we're also looking at the environmental equation, and that factors into how we grow as a company.
The company's catalogs had always featured its apparel in action. The fall of 1983, it created new interest for the catalog by soliciting and using photos of customers caught in the act of enjoying their Patagonia gear. The company also redoubled its environmentalism, in part to eliminate waste and mismanagement in its own operation.
What we're trying to do is balance profits, environmental goals, and building the best quality products on the market for the areas that we're in. Can you do that without harming the environment? Absolutely not. Whatever you're going to do, you're going to have some impact on the environment. But unlike a lot of other companies, what we're trying to do is reduce our impact and literally do as low as you can possibly make it and still be in business.
Patagonia sales have rebounded dramatically, proving that for at least one company, bigger is not necessarily better.
So what we're trying to do is utilize this company as a way to show other businesses that you can make a product that people will buy, and at the same time you assess the damage that you do in producing that product and set about minimizing the impact.
Patagonia remains committed to the preservation and restoration of the natural environment.
We are very concerned about the role of consumption in our society, and that's one of the key reasons that we want to build a high-quality, long-lasting product.
In a corporate world where success is measured in bottom lines, the company is a true anomaly, because at Patagonia, how they play the game is just as important as winning it. And to those who argue you grow or you die, Chenard responds, no business can be done on a dead planet.
Customer, whether they're consumers or businesses, as much as you possibly can. Okay? So buying behavior is the decision processes and acts of people involved in the buying and using of products. So the things they do, the things they expect, and so forth. We'll go into that. Consumer buying behavior is the behavior of the ultimate consumers. So, level of involvement is an individual's degree of interest in a product and the importance he or she places on a product. So, level of involvement for your product, for glass for example, is probably not very high. If I'm just building a tower, a residential tower, I'm not going to be too particular about the type of glass that's in it. I'm more interested in the tile and the plumbing, the things that, add value to somebody's lifestyle. Hopefully the glass is good enough, right? Whereas something like a dress, probably very high involvement for a woman. For somebody like me, as you can see, obviously I don't pay a lot of attention to how I'm dressed. I think I got this tie at Carrefour. Who knows? I don't know. But that's the sort of situation when we look at our customers. Like I said, Canadians, we don't wear a lot of flashy jewelry. So if you open a jewelry store with all high-end jewelry, it's not going to do so well in Canada. My city has one Porsche dealership, one Mercedes dealership, one, and the Land Rover and Jaguar dealerships are the same dealership because we just don't spend money on cars like that. Whereas Doha is about the same, maybe a little bit bigger, but there's 10 Porsche dealerships or something like that. So we need to understand those types of things. So level of involvement, if I'm just buying a bottle of water, what's my level of involvement?
High.
Is it high? For me?
Low maybe.
For me, it's low. Yeah, I mean, water is water. As long as I can look and there's nothing floating in it, I'm good with that. But for some people, maybe it's high. So if you're going, to the Ritz-Carlton for lunch and you're ordering water, you're not going to order this water, Dana water. You're going to think about it. You're going to say, do I want carbonated? Do I want flat? Do I want it lukewarm or do I want it cold?
Low sodium.
That's exactly right. I mean, for me, I'm a man. I don't care about sodium. My guess is there's probably plenty in this because the more I drink it, the thirstier I get. Okay. So level of involvement are classified as, obviously, high level of involvement, how much you're invested. So buying a car is very high level for most people. We care about the color of the carpet, where the buttons are, things like horsepower. I actually prefer one car over the other because 0 to 60 is 0.2 seconds faster. Do you think I can even tell 0.2 seconds? No, that's impossible.